hard and she'll never know I love her to skin and bones, heart, thrones, sticks and stones, just to let you validate your message to
Football is back.
It certainly is, mate.
Get in there. Absolutely buzzing to bring back away days for you tonight. So welcome everyone to Loading Mag NUFC, where we'll be previewing the Fulham Newcastle game. And as we said, it's been far too long. 2 weeks felt like 4 weeks. What do you reckon, Rich?
Longer.
Yeah, definitely feels longer.
It's like the summer after the final day of the season, isn't it? Waiting for this new season to start, or the transfer window to start, something like that.
Definitely, you just need something to kick into gear to keep you going. And yeah, we are back. So absolutely buzzing. And look, there's been lots and lots of ins and outs, ups and downs with Newcastle over the course of the last couple of weeks. So I'm sure we'll get into that's for sure. But what are your initial thoughts going into this game at the weekend, just from a Newcastle perspective?
I don't know. I think I probably wouldn't have been as bad if we'd got the 3 points against Bournemouth. I think with obviously things not going our way in the last 2 home games the way we'd expected them to, it puts a bit more pressure on games like this. Teams that we technically should be beating. Obviously, we've got a good experience. We've got the last couple of times we've beaten Craven Cottage. 2-0 the last time we were down there. I know Fulham were already down by then. It was pretty much, hopefully a last hurrah sort of thing for them that season. Obviously, we won 2-0, and then the season last time before that, we well and truly thumped them at the end of the season as well. So but I think because obviously the players that we've brought in now as well, and I know we've had a few injury worries over the last few weeks and stuff, and that probably hasn't helped to, it's a bit deflating, like some of the results where if you had those players in, you would have expected 3 points. And, we've had some really, really good results against like Man City where we could have won. We should have got something out of the Liverpool game, which is the only defeat we've had so far. And then all these draws that we've had and stuff like that, and it's just the football we've been playing has been fantastic this season, and I can't really fault it. It's just sometimes, obviously, I was watching a podcast today with James Alcott, and he was saying the thing about Newcastle is they've got a fantastic 11 or 12. Then you look at the bench and it's like, that's what's wrong. And this is what's proven to be the case. Obviously, with the injuries we've had, that's what seems to be let down. It's our squad depth at this moment in time. And I think that's proved when we've had like Bruno missing, Maxi missing, Wilson. Obviously, Isak came in, but he's out now by the looks of it, and Wilson's coming back. So we're probably throwing Wilson back in. Would you rather give him an extra couple of weeks to be 100% sure? But obviously, it's like this needs must again. So it's I think the one pleasing thing so far this season is the fact that I think we've been defensively solid, which is not often what you can say for a Newcastle side. I know we were decent not too bad at the end of last season, but if you go back over the history, because even when Sir Bobby was here and King Kev, we weren't renowned as a defensive team. It was more goal. If you're going to score 2, we'll score 3. Or if you score 3, we'll score 4. But now it's, we don't tend to have to worry defensively much anymore. We've done all right. So it's, I think just with this one here, it's a little bit more pressure on it because of the last 2 results, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. Lots and lots to unravel for Newcastle United after the last couple of results, but I'm sure we're going to get into that, no doubt. But look, it's Fulham this weekend at Craven Cottage, 3:00 kickoff, and as always on away days, there's no better way of getting the lowdown and the preview in than having a supporter of the opposition. So we're delighted to welcome in Emilio from Cottage Talk. Welcome in. How are you?
Hello there, guys. Hello there. It's nice
Hi,
to
Emilio,
be
you all right?
there. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Very well. Very well. Looking forward to this weekend, as we alluded to when we were speaking before we went live. But look, pleasure to have you on the channel. First time on the channel. It's the first time we've managed to have a Fulham fan on away day. So it's obviously a fantastic debut for yourself. But from your perspective, obviously Richie quite rightly talked about Newcastle's perspective going into this game. I want to get your thoughts really on Fulham, because lots of people said that Fulham would be the team that would likely to go straight back down. They have the previous two times, but we're looking at the league so far, 6th in the league, 11 points after 7 games. 3 wins. In the bank. What's your assessment of your season so far?
Yeah, I think very pleasing so far. I think I expected a tough season. I was optimistic that we'd stay up, but probably more like just scrape our way through. To be honest, I thought there will be 3 worse teams than us, and I still believe that we're good enough to stay in this division. Looking at it's only 7 games in, but I think all Fulham fans will be very pleased with the return. If anything, I'm disappointed we haven't got more points on the board, because of the games that we haven't won. You could argue on another day we would have banked more points. We got a very credible 2-2 draw against Liverpool opening day of the season. On another day we would have won that game. We should have won that game in theory, but Liverpool, they found a way to grind out a draw. So but a point you'll take it against arguably one of the best teams in the world. And then Wolves a week after, a 0-0 draw again. No easy place to go to, but you miss a penalty 10 minutes to go. You've got to take those chances when they come. Again, you could argue that's 2 points dropped. And Arsenal, Tottenham, their bonus games away from home. I thought Arsenal, were the better team, but they scored a late winner. And then Tottenham, in their defence, they were for 70 minutes they dominated, but we got another goal, found a way to break them through, and their keeper made apparently the best save of the month. Competition he won from that deflection. So again, that could have gone either way. That could have got another point in the bank. But the Wolves and Liverpool game, I think I look at those, and minimum 2 points drop, could have been 4. So 11-point return is very good. We've got a lot of room for optimism. Admit it's only 7 games, but like you said, Pete, it's 11 points on the board, 11 points closer to safety. I'm realistic. I'm grounded here, to be honest. If we stay in the Premier League, hopefully I can come on your show more every year rather than every 2 years. It'd be nice. But overall, it's pleasing. We've had a couple of injuries like yourself, so we've bought some key players. We've all out with injuries. So again, our sort of backup players are sort of coming in. Done well so far. Mitrovic is banging the goals in, so he's in the form of his life, scoring internationally for fun, creating chances, scoring chances, causing a nuisance of himself against opposing defenses. So we've got a lot to look forward to. But it's like I said, it's only 6 of the ways of the season gone. Long way to go yet, but I'll keep picking up the points and I'll be happy. But yeah, so far so good. I can't complain. I'm very happy with the start so far.
Yeah, definitely. I think lots of other opposition clubs have been surprised by Fulham. I remember Richie, first game of the season, we were in the pub just before we went to the Forest game, and we watched obviously Fulham playing against Liverpool. And every time we kept looking up, having been to the bar, it was Liverpool. It was Liverpool on the defensive. It was Fulham going at them, and it was like you could tell the atmosphere watching the game in that pub. In the build up to the match was, everyone was almost of shock, but Fulham were taking the game to Liverpool, and Liverpool really struggled that game. And you're right, you should have at least, got 3 points. In my opinion, I think you deserved it fully. But, most people would think, it's just one game. Everyone raises their game for Liverpool, but you've gone again, and you keep doing it, and you keep pushing forward. And coming nicely into the next point, with that type of mentality and that way of playing football, How influential has this man been for you?
Mm.
Coming in, you had Scott Parker before. Scott Parker left, and surprisingly, in my opinion, went to Bournemouth. I think a lot of people were shocked about that at the time, but Marco Silva's come in. How much of an influence has he had on the way in which you are playing now?
A complete reversal of Scott Parker. I wasn't an advocate of his signing when he got the job, but sometimes you have to back the owners, and you back the manager. I'm not one to keep sacking managers, but watching that football, was dire, to be honest. For a couple of seasons, it was horrible. It was depressing. Last couple of years ago in the Premier League, I thought, if we had a little bit more of an attacking threat, I think we would have stayed in the division, because I thought the squad 2 years ago was good enough on paper to stay up, but clearly the wrong manager. Didn't score enough goals. Mitrovic wasn't even figuring in the starting 11, always on the bench. So good riddance, to be honest. He moved on through choice. So and then in comes Marco Silva. Different philosophy, attacking brand of football, very exciting, a lot of energy, a lot of intensity, a good man manager. Mitrovic was a couple of years, 18 months was depressed, before the last season. I think his penalty miss stopped Serbia getting, going to the World Cup, or then I think all the Euros. It was Euros, I think, wasn't it? Where he was at fault for missing a penalty, and then Serbia didn't qualify for a major tournament. His confidence rock bottom. In comes a new manager, his arm around his back, patted him, giving him opportunities. He scored 40-odd goals last season. He's ready to threat this year. Scoring for fun for Serbia, like I mentioned earlier, form of his life, and he's still 27 years old. So this guy is getting the best out of these players. There's more energy, there's more belief, there's confidence, there's a togetherness. That's what was missing under Parker. There was all, you could see people, morale was down. We were difficult to beat a couple of years ago. We just weren't scoring goals. Because now we may concede goals because of the expansive way we're playing. But I'm happy to just watch a more exciting brand of football. We're scoring goals, we're creating opportunities. The players want to play for the manager. They're all developing, they're all maturing, they're all evolving, and he's getting the best of, in some cases, average players who I would have thought at the end of last year wouldn't be good enough to play in this division. But, they've proved me wrong so far. They're, Tim Ream, 35 years old. I thought it would just be like someone just to keep the dressing room morale up when things are down. But look, he's figuring every game, and he's been arguably one of our best 3 players of the season. So that comes with confidence, with belief, energy, confidence amongst the team. And Marco Silva's made a massive, massive difference. And there was a bit of a risk that we could have lost him in the summer if he didn't get the signings he wanted. But, usual, we started early transfers, then it all went very quiet. And then we get a few last minute signings. But overall, I think there's a good squad there. And he's once we get all our players back from injury, I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. But he's made a massive difference. And the fans have reason to believe, unlike 2 years ago when it was just hope. And we clearly didn't stay up a couple of years ago.
Yeah, he's definitely changed things around. Like you said, you've got a number of players that you came up with, and the fact that they're still playing and featuring and playing well is testament to him. But you may have already partly touched on it. But what's the style of play from Fulham? I'm sure we'll get into this later when we talk tactics, but what is the style of play, not necessarily from Fulham, but what Marco Silva's brought in? What is the mentality in the way in which you guys set yourselves up?
It's all about attack with Marco Silva. Even in his previous clubs, there was always a view that we'll concede goals, but we're able to score more than you concede. I think Scott Parker, it was all about protecting the goal, don't concede and try to nick a goal here and there. But under Marco Silva, we play with intensity. Most games we started off getting right at the opposing defences, stretching them, play with that high level of intensity, good width, good pace, good movement. I think that's the key thing. As the players he's brought in, very shrewd signings. There's a good movement on the pitch. You can see there's good engagement between the different players, a camaraderie on the pitch as well. You see at times when maybe things don't quite work out, but you see that togetherness there, and he just brings that belief and that high. We play high up the pitch, and that's where sometimes we get caught out. But we've got a good goalkeeper. Defense is, we're still conceding a few goals. That's my only drawback. The fact is, if you're conceding and not scoring, then you're going to lose games. Whereas we've managed to find a way of scoring goals and conceding fewer. And that's my only reason. 1 clean sheet out of 7. That's a slight worry, but we're creating chances against arguably top half teams this year. Brighton, Brentford, they're all good teams. We beat them both at home. By the virtue of that, we scored more goals than them, 3-2 and 2-1. So if we can sort out the defence and sort of be a little bit tighter, but at the end of the day, you compromise on attack and go defensive. That's not Marco Silva's way of football. His way is push on, keep scoring, keep creating chances. Target your big man up front, and things will come good. So it's a different philosophy, and I think fans would prefer to get relegated playing that brand of football than trying to watch the dire football we had a couple of years ago under Parker. So yeah, happy days to be a Fulham supporter at the moment.
I think it's very similar to how when Newcastle used to play. We always want our teams to at least have a go. We don't just want to sit there on the back foot and just take spanking sort of thing, and possibly hit someone a break and try and get the draw or whatever. As long as your team gives it a go and leaves it all on the pitch, you don't mind whether you get beat or you might get the win, if you know what I mean. So it's did you expect to get anything out of the Liverpool game, for example, first game of the season?
No, not at all.
But if you didn't have a score down, so.
It's all about keeping the score down, and that gave us good insight what to expect in subsequent games. I think we played with high intensity. We caught Van Dijk out, and he struggled. And to be honest, he's not not the player he is this season compared to 2 years ago. But still, he's still an international world class player, and we gave him a lot of problems. And if we play to our standard of football, create problems, set pieces, we've made a difference this season as well. Pereira's come in and out of games at times, but set pieces we're a lot more effective. We're scoring from set pieces, we're creating chances, and that's where we're getting a lot of productivity. Big men, big defenders, good distribution from good wide players, and giving Mitrovic the service he needs. And if you give him that service, things are going to happen. There was a risk he got injured last week in that Serbia game at the weekend, but he came back on Tuesday and scored a hat-trick again. So as long as he's injury free, I'm fine with that. But overall, we're playing to people's strengths, and Marco Silva is a good manager, talks to his players. I've just seen some of the players who I'd argue are not good enough at this level have matured now compared to the same players 2 years ago when they were 2 years younger, who frankly were not good enough at this level.
Interesting. I know Alexander Mitrovic is quite a popular part of the discussion in the chat, so we will come to him shortly. But I just want to give a massive shout out already. So many regulars in the chat. We love away days for this reason. Like Carl Segi, Lisa, Gary, Tom Dixon, as always, Andrew, Mark, Ian, Simon, as always, our super sponsor, always in the chat supporting. Welcome everyone. Seth Tom Mags, I could go through Paul Gallant, El Stapleton. There's so many. We really, really appreciate you joining the chat and getting your opinions out there. And Richie, you've already said in the chat some fantastic questions, which I'm sure we'll get to. Maybe let's throw one out there now. Do we want to address the elephant in the room, or do we want to just ask maybe one or two other questions? Where do we go next?
I think one of the talking points is obviously it's an away day, and obviously we all love away days, as we say, Pete. But obviously it's the rumours. It's your first a game at home with the new stand, and apparently obviously the Newcastle fans are going to be located in there as well as the full fans. But we've got Les Stapleton here. He basically wants to know what are your thoughts on the ticket prices? Because the rumour is that it's £100 for an adult and £60 for a juvenile. Is that, first of all, is that correct? And two, what are your thoughts on it then, Emilio?
Yeah, it's been a controversial topic when, especially the Liverpool game, the first one of the season, when those additional tickets were put on sale. They put them, they said up to £100 each for some of the premium seats. Look, at the end of the day, the owners, it's a business. Let's be honest. I think it's too high. To be honest with you, as a neutral, if I was a Fulham fan watching the odd game here and there, I wouldn't pay £100. I'll be honest with you. I think I've got my season ticket for many years. I'm happy with that, but £100 is a bit excessive. And then you're paying junior ticket 60. That's just extortionate. So at the end of the day, it is a business. I don't necessarily agree that those prices are fair, but we've got to fund a new stand. It's a bit like Tottenham Hotspur. When they built their new stand, then there's going to be a compromise here and there. To be honest, you're not going to keep everyone happy. The owners have put a lot of money into this club. They've developed the new stand. They've invested for many years in players. Unfortunately, they've had 3 relegations now, but you can't fault their commitment for spend and throw money at the club. If we had maybe a better director of football who was more focused on the club, then maybe we would have had more chance to succeed. So, albeit I don't agree with that amount of money, we're in a prime location in the country, one of the most expensive parts of the UK. it doesn't justify those prices. But the owners have got to make a return on their investment. To be honest, they have thrown a lot of money at the club. So although I don't agree, that's business for you, I'm afraid.
Yeah, it's 100 quid for a ticket.
A lot. It's a lot for a Premier League game, and then you multiply that 9, potentially six to 8 prime, the premium games. To be honest, like against Liverpool, Arsenal, Tottenham, all that. That's nearly £1,000 just from watching 7-8 games. That's a lot of money. A lot of money.
I don't have to ask a cheeky question, but how many of tickets at that price would you? How much? Obviously, your season ticket, does that go above how much you pay for your full season?
Yeah, for my ticket, I'm in a good position to stand up. I think it's just about £6.50 I paid for 19 home games. That's actually not too bad, and I've got a pretty good seat. And again, I don't want fans to take this the wrong way, but if the season ticket holders get rewarded, for loyalty. There is sometimes in other businesses you don't get rewarded with loyalty, like insurances. You want to renew your insurance. Whether you've been with them 10 years or 1 year, it's the same price. At the club, they reward you. And I think for season ticket holders who go in year out, there's loyalty and they get rewarded. Sort of the fans who can't go to every game, that's where, unfortunately, they're being priced out, which is unfair. I get that. It's very unfair. But it goes back to my point. Unfortunately, the owners have got to make a return on their investment. They've thrown a lot of money at this club for 7 years. New stand. They're not here to make loss. They're here to sort of run a football club and run it well and try to be successful. And with that, unfortunately, there's compromises. So it may not be fair, but there's a lot of things that are not fair in the world at the moment. Let's be honest.
Yeah, Richie, what do you think the reaction would be?
Your tickets, out of interest.
Well, Richie might know more than me, but I don't think I've paid more than £35 for a ticket at home, and that's both at the Leazers end, so opposite ends of the goals, so the Leazers end, and then £35 I paid as well in the Gallagher, and that for me has been face value. And I've got to be honest, both ends of the stadium I've had unbelievable views. It's been like perfect positions for me. Richie, you might know a little bit more with regards to the prices.
Yeah, it's Newcastle's really, really good price-wise for individual tickets. Say, for example, like the most expensive one, and it's pretty much if you're sitting in the Milburn or the East Stand, middle central, you're probably looking about £55 to £60 for those. Okay. But then if you go, say, for example, for the family enclosure, which is level 7, but you could get a child seat and an adult seat, depending on your view, anywhere between 37 and 44. That's two. Okay. So that's like really good, really. Do you know what I mean? So it's I can't fault them on that sort of thing. Season ticket prices, they've been relatively kept low. Obviously, they had the 10-year price plans and stuff like that Mike actually brought in. So that they've been pretty good with the season. But I think the fact that they're still keeping so many on general sale and at the prices that they are is great. I think the tickets I was given for the Leicester game, we were literally front row on the Milburn stand to Leazers corner, and I think that the face value ticket for the adult was £48, I think.
Okay.
That's literally front row of the main stand. So it's
okay, not too bad. I bought tickets for the Chelsea game which got postponed to the Queen's passing. So that I bought a ticket for a friend of mine. That was 70 quid from sitting next to me. So that's actually not too bad. Again, that's sort of the next level from 100 down. It's tiered down to 70, and some of those additional tickets are £60. So it's not £100 for all parts of the stand. Obviously, depending where you sit, you can get additional tickets from 50, 60 upwards for those premium games as well. So I don't want people to think it's every seat is £100. No, it obviously is still tiered. And there's a select few that go at that price, and the majority around that set, £60 to £80 typically. Still too much, but it's more reasonable, I guess.
Yeah.
Wow, it's interesting to see how the various different clubs work. But hopefully for your fans' sake that it's reviewed at some point, because I know for a fact if that was ours, I think there'd be an uproar.
And there has been a lot of criticism, a lot of sort of stern supporters criticize the owners for that. And I get it. I see both sides of the fence. I don't think it's acceptable, but unfortunately, we live in we can't use excuses as cost of living crisis. We're all going through a recession. life is life, business is business, and I think you put yourself in their shoes, and they want to get their money back in recognition for all the investment they put in the club. So you're never going to please everybody, unfortunately, and I think it doesn't help. We're in a sort of an expensive part of the country, prime location, London. The location of the club. That's what's also contributing to the high inflationary prices there.
Yeah, definitely. Welcome, Chris. He's in the chat. I think he's on his way to London, if I'm right in thinking.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
He's a bigger fan of London than up north, clearly, because he's down there all the bloody time. But yeah, I hope you're well, Chris. No doubt we'll be speaking to you very soon. But I've got some thoughts. I want to get your thoughts actually on a few of your players. First and foremost, this one was a surprising one for me, but he's turned out to be a fantastic signing for you, and it's this man, João Paulinho, if I'm pronouncing that right.
Paulinho, yeah, absolutely. It's
how good has he been for you? I mean, lots of opposition fans have been raving about him, and he's scored a terrific goal against Forest, and seems to be playing really, really well. Like, what is it about him that stands out from your perspective?
We're all very excited when we managed to beat Wolverhampton Wanderers. Obviously, with their Portuguese connection, they were desperate to get him. But give all dues to our owners. They persevered, they pursued, they negotiated, and got the player they wanted. And he's been a beast. Sitting in front of that back four, protecting that four. He's got physical presence. He's got good vision, good passing. He's scoring goals. He's a threat from just outside the box and from set pieces. This man covers a hell of a lot of ground, and he's by far been our best. You could argue probably been our best player this season. I know Mitrovic just scored a load of goals, but for yourself, fortunately, he's injured, so he's suspended on Saturday. So he's picked up 5 yellow cards, so he's not playing on Saturday. So
I was not aware of that. I was not.
Yeah, so it's that's a huge disappointment. He got the yellow card against Forest for basically celebrating taking his top off in the crowd. So he got a yellow card for that. He's missing the game. But that's the only downside. He's picking up a lot of yellow cards, but with that comes energy, passion. He's getting tackles and he's getting stuck in, and he's a threat going forward. He's protecting that back four, and yeah, his vision, his awareness is very, very good. He's been outstanding. To be £18 million, been top class. To be honest, very good signing. And that was the only thing, the only drawback. If you look at his stats historically, he's how many yellow cards does he pick up in a season? Quite a few, and we've looked 5 yellow cards in 7 games. So something he needs to focus on, but. He's been outstanding. Arguably him and Mitrovic have been our 2 best players this season. And lucky you guys not having to play against him on Saturday.
You can see the smile on my face because I watched him against when you played Forest, and I was like, "Wow, this player is some talent." And he's been properly bigged up, and rightly so. But I was actually, there's part of me that actually was looking forward to seeing how he would get on against the likes of Joe Linton and potentially Bruno and against those type of midfielders, how we would come up against them. But look, I'm not going to argue if he's not on the pitch come 3 o'clock Saturday. I've got to say. Before we get to the more obvious player, I want to get your thoughts on this player. There's a player I like a lot, and we were linked with him in January, and it's Tosin Adebayo,
yes,
Adebayo, that's the one. Again, a very, very talented player. Had a good end to the season, even though when you got relegated the last time, he was playing well. It looks like a talented player, big, tall, strong defender. What are your thoughts on him? What are his sort of standout features from someone that watches him every week?
Commanding. He's susceptible to making a few errors, to be honest, but he's young. He's got potential. He didn't necessarily have a great season last year. I think by his own standards, I thought he had an average season. He dipped in and out. Some games he was outstanding, controlled the defense. In other areas, his passing, his vision, his carelessness, and just got caught out quite a few times. But he's playing with Tim Ream, the player who played with him last season in defence, and he's had a better season. He's even in the Premier League 2 years ago. I thought he had Joachim Andersen alongside him a couple of years ago. Very good international player. Crystal Palace is arguably Crystal Palace's best player this season, and he had someone experienced alongside him. I think he when Tim Rimmers eventually hangs up his boots, if he has somebody of someone younger with international experience and pedigree, then he can evolve into a much better player. But he's still got a few errors in him. I think he can either be very good or he can have many off games. But he's been so far so good, but not been outstanding this season. But you have been linked with him. Other clubs have been linked with him over the last 12 months. But I think he's here for a couple more years. I think he'll commit to the club, and we can stay in this division. And we've got to build around some of these younger players. We can't keep selling these younger folks. Keep them, build your team around them, get some good international experience alongside him, and he will grow and develop and become a very important player for us. And he's now starting to get into good positions from set pieces, so causing that aerial threat, which he's very capable of doing. So he's there for the long haul. I don't see him going anywhere very soon, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. Like I say, I do like him. He's got all those raw attributes to be a top centre back, but it'll be interesting to see how he kind of goes on and continues to perform. Richie, the elephant in the room. I know there was a question from Tom regarding this individual, so I don't know if you want to pop that question up.
Yeah, I'll just finish sending that message there to Bobby because you don't know where Dazzler is tonight. But Tom basically wants to know what's your thoughts on Mitrovic this season. He's been on fantastic form for Fulham. Obviously, you touched on his season in the Premier League last time you were in. Obviously, only having the 3 goals in the full season. But he started, like a rocket this season, isn't he? He's banging the goals in for fun. I think he's always done that for Serbia. But it's nice to actually see him doing it for Fulham, just hopefully not on Saturday.
Yes. Well, 2 promotions ago when he got promoted, he scored a few goals in a pretty poor team, to be honest. But then under Parker, his goal return was low because he wasn't played. To be honest, everyone keeps saying he doesn't score in the Premier League, but if you're not given game time, you're not starting games, you're not going to score goals. So Parker had a beer in his bonnet about him, didn't give him any chances to play, didn't see his style of football in line with how Mitrovic plays. And, in comes Marco Silva, we're playing to his strengths. We're creating chances. He's causing that aerial threat, that physical presence. He can bully defenses. He's scoring goals. Some of the goals he scored have been quality, and he's in form. And, as a striker, if you've got confidence, you're going to score goals at international or club level. And, he's excited. Just he's lost a bit more weight in the summer as well, so he just looks lean, hungry, always smiling, getting stuck in, causing a nuisance, winning penalties, scoring penalties, misses penalties as well. But it's a bit of everything. He's an all-round player, and he's key to our success. But it was good to see against Forest. Again, we're not relying on him all the time. We beat Forest away, arguably 3-2 flattered Forest that day. We should have won more comfortably, but he didn't score. So again, it's important that we can get other players in the team that can contribute and score goals and not rely on your target man. So he's going to be a threat. I know things didn't necessarily go according to plan in his career at Newcastle, but I think he's been outstanding in the 4+ years he's been at the club. 3 promotions, scoring goals for fun, and I think we've got a lot to look for. He's only 27, so I think he's still got a few more seasons in him. I know there's a bit of rumours that other bigger clubs were linked with him in the summer, but he won't leave. He's playing week in, week out. Why would he want to leave? He's on good wages. Fans love him. The owners love him. The manager loves him. The players love him. Stay where you are. Keep this team in the division and help us push on and advance in this league. But if we play to his strengths, he's going to be a threat on Saturday, as you'd expect. So let's hopefully he's not picked up a knock. Like I said, there was a bit of a doubt that he picked up an injury last Saturday, but he came back and scored a hat-trick on Tuesday. So that reassures me he's fully fit and ready for Saturday.
Yeah, I was going to actually ask you about that because I saw a picture coming up after that game where he was walking off back to the changing room with a big ice pack on his right ankle, wasn't he? So certainly played through the pain on, was it Tuesday night, I think, or something? So it was just basically, had you actually had any word on that? Has it, is it as bad as it seemed, or is it just one of those where it's, he's felt it probably, some painkillers and then you plod on sort of thing the next game?
A bit of that, yeah. I think there was a bit of that, but he can tolerate that level of pain now. I think a couple of years ago, when his confidence was rock bottom, he might have just said, "You know what? I've had enough. I'm not going to play." I'll sulk in the corner. But now he's determined. He'll do everything he can to get himself fit. Take a few painkillers and fight for the club, because he knows how important the club is to survive in the Premier League. So, I expect he will play on Saturday, and but his contribution all round. That's the key thing. It's not just the goals. You look at his aerial presence, his movement, his vision, his goals. He's not afraid to score from strike from distance. His great goal against Tottenham at their ground, and then another strike we almost hit the top corner, and their keeper made a great save. But overall, that's what confidence does as a striker. As I mentioned, if your confidence is sky high, then you feel you can beat the world.
Yeah, I think with Mitrovic, you made a really good point. He's not. I don't think he'll actively look to leave. I think if he wanted to leave, he'd have left.
Yeah,
the couple of times he got relegated, but he seems to really enjoy it at the club, and that's why he kind of wants to stay. But you touched on the fact that he looks a little bit leaner and fitter this season. Have you noticed that in the work that he puts off the ball? Because you've talked about his aerial threat. You talked about obviously the fact that he's scored goals this season, but one thing that us Newcastle fans always kind of questioned him on, certainly when he was here under Rafa, is the fact that he didn't work enough off the ball. He didn't press high enough. He didn't, put enough pressure on centre backs. Have you been seeing that more this season? Has he improved that part of his game?
Absolutely. I think it's the Liverpool game is a good example. We caught Van Dijk off guard. To be honest, he was literally bullying him, threatening him, and two big men. Mitrovic came on top for 90 minutes in that game, and I just see even his contribution in defence. When we're having to defend corners, he's always he's not waiting on the halfway line. He's there in our penalty area trying to defend for his life as well. So again, his all-round play is improving year on year, and he's fighting for the club. Good movement, good vision, good technique. I think I feel like his technique and his passing ability has improved as well. And I think it still comes with confidence. Marcus Silva's playing to his strengths, and Mitrovic is responding appropriately with goals, assists, and just his all-round play. He runs his socks off throughout the game. If you just actually watch him when he's not in the penalty area trying to cause a threat, he's all over the pitch, trying to be a nuisance, trying to claim the ball, trying to make something happen. And then we've got with our wide men and with our pace, and we've always got a chance to score a goal or two. That's why now we scored 12 goals this season. That's actually not a bad return for a promoted team who were given little chance to stay in this division. So we've got other players at the club as well. It's a team as well. And that's the key thing. We're not relying on one man. We're relying on 11 players each week, and that's important. A philosophy that Marco Silva's brought into this club.
Yeah, definitely. Be interesting to see how he gets on over a full season, and a full fit season.
Yeah.
Obviously, hopefully after this Saturday, of course. But yeah,
that's the way for me. It's where if he does pick up an injury, we were debating at the weekend. Well, if he did pick up a knock, who's going to play? That in that centre forward role. That's my only concern. I think we've bought a Vilnius from the old player that was once at Tottenham. I'm not sure about him. Again, he may be able to pop up with a few goals. We've got Bobby Decador-Reid, who 2 years ago in the Premier League was our top scorer. So he's not. I don't think he's a Premier League player, but he's performing okay, and he could also play in that role. So it's where are the goals potentially going to come from? So they don't come from your other players, and Mitrovic is injured or suspended. Then where are the goals going to come? That's another doubt of mine. But I don't think we invested appropriately in that centre forward backup role for Mitrovic.
Yeah, interesting. Right.
Just regards to Mitrovic, obviously one of the things he struggled with, I think it's probably down to his age when he was at Newcastle, was his ability of picking up a yellow card. Now I've noticed he's picked up a couple already, but he's still managed to keep that physicality as part of his game. But he seems to be a little bit more clever now, and he's not rash anymore like he used to be, which I think was one of the reasons why Rafa really didn't like him, because he liked to be paid, hard and fair and stuff like that, but it sort of lets your team down when you're picking up a book in, pretty much every sort of game.
Yeah, absolutely. A good point. And his temperament has improved as well. And again, I think that comes with Marco Silva and the coaching staff here. They've focused on that, that passion, that sort of Serbian aggression and all that. You can still have, really, you can compete and, get stuck in. But, there's 2 or 3 years ago, you might argue he would not use the elbow, but use his arms a little bit more, religiously. Whereas now he's actually being a little bit more sophisticated with his aerial challenges. He's avoiding using the arm, where Nessese is not picking up as many yellow cards as he would have done when he was younger. So that comes with good coaching. So I think the coaching staff are focused on that because, like you said, we can't afford for him to pick up suspensions or red cards. You know, he's critical to the success of this team. And, you know, again, good that he's learning and he's responding. Yeah, you still see that passion and, you know, disappointment when maybe things don't go his way, but he's got a lot to be pleased about so far this season.
Definitely. He definitely looks more mature, that's for sure. 27 years old. He definitely looks more mature, and he's grown up from being, what, a 20-year-old at Newcastle United. So it is a big difference, and it is a huge chunk of a period of time in your career for you to mature and see different ways in which you were playing. And I do think, Richard's touched on the point. I do think if he'd have had this level of maturity, you know, those 7 years ago, I think he would have stayed long term at Newcastle, because there was no doubt that he did produce moments when he was on the pitch. It just wasn't maybe as consistent, and maybe there was elements of his game that hadn't quite developed yet. And that's just a part of being a footballer. Players develop at different ages, and it seems like it's certainly coming together at Fulham for Mitrovic now.
I was going to say, Pete, do you not think that one of the other things that way might have, obviously because he was so young, and obviously I just thought sometimes, you know, that there was that rumour that he supported Newcastle as a kid, because obviously he was a big Alan Shearer fan from the time when Newcastle played against Partizan in the Champions League qualifiers, that he just wanted to do so well for Newcastle that he was, you know, like a bit like a puppy chasing the ball around sort of thing, you know, the eager sort of thing, and but he was like over eager to try and do well for the team he supported from afar, and that's why he was picking up the bookings and stuff like that, because he was trying to, I suppose, in his own way, show that 100% commitment that he thought the fans want, but because of his age and his maturity, perhaps obviously he went away the wrong way about it.
I think he said it all when he got booked after 5 seconds of coming on his debut against Southampton, where he literally came on, ran to the corner and cleared someone out and got a booking for it. So that was his first action in Premier League football. And so, I agree. I think he just wanted to do his best for Newcastle, and obviously try and emulate, like I said, his hero at the time, Alan Shearer, who he grew up watching on a regular basis. So, I would agree with that, definitely. I honestly believe, I don't think it's the case now, I do honestly believe he had visions of coming back to Newcastle and playing at Newcastle. I don't think that's probably his ambition now. He's enjoying things at Fulham, but I do think he thought at some point he would come back to Newcastle. And I think that's probably what maybe he struggled with for a couple of years, is knowing that, you know, when he had to move permanently, that he wasn't going to go back and play for Newcastle, because, like you said, he was a fan of the club and he loved playing for Newcastle, albeit for a short period of time. I want to get your thoughts on some Newcastle players shortly, Emilio, but of course we can't ever get through an away days in the right possible way without having some stats. And there's only one way we have stats on away days on Loaded Mag NUFC, and it's with this man.
Evening, lads.
Like magic, he appears.
Hi there.
How you doing?
Well,
Double O Stato, how's things, Keith?
yeah, everything's well. I hope everybody enjoyed their international break. You know,
maybe not. But pleasure to have you on as always, and obviously first time meeting Emilio. So great you have you on together as well. What stats are available for us this week? We've played Fulham a hell of a lot of times. I'm hoping for some positivity here, Keith. But throw some stats at us and let us know what we're in for this weekend.
well, I've got a load of stats. I'll try to keep it positive, as positive possible. I've got some head-to-head stats. I've got some stats about the players, and then I've got some stats about the managers and some general stats. But unfortunately, I'll just forewarn you now, Pete. The most positive thing might be yours and my colour that we're wearing tonight. Unfortunately, with Newcastle in the form that they've been in recently, Newcastle's all-time record in this fixture, Fulham have actually got the edge. They've played 55 times. Newcastle have won 19, drawn 11, and they've lost 25 games against Fulham. And it's a similar story in the Premier League, actually, albeit smaller numbers. 28 games, Fulham have the slight edge with 12 wins compared to 11 to Newcastle and 5 draws. And those 12 wins that Fulham have is the best record against any team in the Premier League. Haven't managed as many as 12 wins against anybody else. Although Newcastle here have got the slight edge on goals, 36 to 34 for Fulham in the Premier League in those fixtures. Newcastle have also got the better defensive record, 9 clean sheets to Fulham's 6 clean sheets. Believe it or not, there's never been a draw in this fixture at Craven Cottage. So 9 wins to Fulham and 5 wins to Newcastle is always a first. At the weekend, we could have a score draw maybe or something like that. Eddie Howe, his record as manager against Fulham, he hasn't managed them off in 4 games. 3 wins and a draw. Sorry, and a defeat there. So he has a good record against Fulham, whereas Marco Silva, again, really small numbers, a win, a draw, and a loss. 3 games he's managed against Newcastle. Callum Wilson, 3 goals in 5 games against Fulham, so quite good when he plays. And Alexander Mitrovic, we mentioned him earlier. I just thought I'd mention again those 6 goals he scored for Fulham again. So early in the season, he's really taken to it this season in the Premier League for Fulham, following his 43 goals last year in 44 games in the Championship for Fulham. An amazing record. Fabian Shaw, he likes Fulham. He's scored for Newcastle in 2 away games at Craven Cottage. The last 2 away games, the last 2 wins. Can he make it 3 on Saturday? Newcastle United are winless in the last 6 Premier League games. It's the longest winless streak since November last year. Fulham, they've won 3 games already in 5 Premier League games this season. I think Fulham here needed about 30 Premier League games to get the same sort of numbers, 3 wins in the last 2 seasons that they were in. And Fulham, the last time that Fulham won 3 in a row in the Premier League was 10 years ago, between April and September 2012. And that rounds off the stats.
Wow.
I did see a few smiles there from Emilio. I've got to be honest, as some of them would be read out. You got to be happy with some of those stats, that's for sure.
Yeah, I look back and the last 2 home performances have been dire in the last 2 seasons. The 4-0 drubbing, the 2-0 like 2 years ago, we were dead and buried. We just didn't turn up that day. That was an awful display. But prior to that, though, I think there's been some good, exciting games. Certainly at Fulham. I remember when we played you in the Championship when we beat you 1-0 in the opening day of the season. Do you remember that? That was a Friday night game. I know that's not Premier League, but there've been some good games between themselves. I think 2 years ago at St James's Park, we should have beaten you, but we dominated. But you got an equaliser in that game, and on another day we should have had a penalty, or you should have had a player got sent off. I can't remember what the incident was. We should have been 2-0 up, didn't take the chances, and ended up getting a point. But overall, this fixture's been obviously quite close, like you said, Keith. There's some interesting stats there.
I think also as well there, Emilio, those 2 games, those 2 wins came right at the end of the season.
Yeah, when we were dead and buried, relegated already. It's I remember a 5-2 fixture. This goes back probably that 2012 season when what's his name? Clint Dempsey scored a hat trick. I think you guys were 2-1 up. Were you 2-0 up or 2-1 up? And we sort of thrashed you 5. This was under what's his name? Alan Pardew, I think, was your manager at the time. Yeah, was that right? Was my memory serving me right? But we then lost another game at the end of the season, 3-1. I think we lost in May. Once about 3-1 about 7-8 years ago. So there have been some interesting games. I even remember the games from the 80s when we were both second tier teams and we won a few games. I think we beat you 4-1 at St James's Park twice. So yeah, there's been some interesting fixtures over the year. But I actually predicted a draw for this game, to be honest. That might be that first draw between the two teams in the Premier League. But it's you've got a disappointing 5 games without a win now. What's the issue there? To be honest, I'll throw it back to you guys because I looked at your transfer signings this summer. If I was a Newcastle supporter, I'd be somewhat a little bit sort of, bewildered. I thought maybe was there lack of investment? Was it financial fair play? What was it? I don't think you've met with all the money that you've got now, the backing that you got from the owners. Were you happy with your transfer window, or were you disappointed? Because I don't think you've got depth there. A bit like ourselves, maybe at times we're maybe lacking a bit of depth. But I'm looking at it from your side. You've got the money there, and are you short on depth and quality?
Yeah, yeah. We're short. We're short on depth. As I said at the start of the show, that's what James Alcott had mentioned, that Newcastle have got a fantastic 11, 12, 13 players. Then you look to the bench, and there's not much there. And obviously that's what we found over the start of the season with having 3 of our key players out. For us, we've never ever been thinking we're going to go and throw the money around. We've always known that we're going to do it sensibly. Yes, we've got the money to do a Nottingham Forest if we wanted to, and turn over a whole 24-man squad sort of thing. But it was all about doing it the right way. And yes, we've got the money, but we're not going to be pulled over hot coals and charged extortionate fees. There's good businessmen who are running the clubs, in the consortium, and then they're going about it the right way. And they've said, there's been loads of people that we're linked with, and Newcastle fans would have taken them, but they're not going to be extorted. And if the deal's right for the club, then they'll pull the trigger, which is pretty much what happened with the Alexander Isak deal. It was rumoured that we were probably going to go from January or next summer, but obviously the injury to Callum Wilson and the Real Sociedad had lowered the terms, so Newcastle decided to pull the trigger now. So it is one where we know that there's a lot to do, but that's because of the lack of investment over the last 14 years under Mike Ashley. It's a lot that needs to be overhauled, but you just can't do it all at once. So it's literally fine-tuning it and trying to get a good 4 to 5 players each window. So we're not going to be, as I said, we've got a good 12 or 13 players. We're getting some good youngsters coming through, like Elliot Anderson. We've also, we've bought some good youth to go into the under 23s. There's the young lad that we've rumoured to have completed the deal from Australia, Karan Kowal, which obviously he's not going to come and make an immediate impact, but he's definitely one for the future. But the fact that we're starting to invest in that sort of thing as well, which we haven't, we've completely neglected over recent years, it's good to see that there's improvements coming all around. Even with the ladies team becoming a full-time team now as well, and also being brought into the Newcastle banner as well as the main club, not just a subsidiary who wears the black and white shirt. So it's really good, and we're all happy with the way Newcastle are going about it. Yes, we could be. I think that we were probably 2 players short of possibly where something that fans would have wanted over the summer. We were crying out for another winger and a creative midfielder or a defensive midfielder, which you could have pushed Bruno forward. I think that's the 2 players that we were looking at. But if you go back, we tried to go after James Maddison, who was rumoured to be one of the targets. We also looked at Moussa Diaby at the start of the window. João Pedro was another one as well. You can go back and mention Hugo Ekitike as well. So there was all these players that we identified for them, but we weren't going to be hauled over hot coals. As I mentioned, the deal had to be right for the club. If it's not, the walk away.
Okay. It's look at that. You've got a lot of the foundations from the club, the squad that you had a couple of years ago. The Almirons, the Joe Lintons. Remember they gave us they stretched us a couple of years ago in both those fixtures. I recall, and Dan Burn, for example, to see, at the end of the day, he wasn't good enough for Fulham. And look, he did well at Brighton. I think, well, he's played most games for you this season in central defence. So I'm hearing some positive feedback from fans around his performances. Trippier's been a good signing for you. I think it's the goals. Like I said, you've had a lot of injuries as well. I'm probably going to tempt fate here. You're probably going to beat us 3-0 on Saturday. But yeah, you're struggling with scoring goals at the moment. I think, like I said, you're not conceding many goals. You're looking very tight, well organised. Maybe that's a Eddie Howe philosophy. Like I said, not so much like Scott Parker, but sort of safety first. How inspired are you by Eddie Howe? Because I look at it, I was always a big fan of him. Bournemouth, I thought he did well with a limited squad, but I don't see there's much to get excited about. I just his brand of football isn't particularly exciting. Can be a bit dour. Safety first, a bit like a bit more mature Scott Parker. Is that fair? Or am I being?
Try having Steve Bruce beforehand.
Yeah, chaos and disorder beforehand with Steve Bruce.
Keith, from your perspective, Emile's made a point from his observation as a Fulham fan. He doesn't feel there's much to get sort of excited about with Eddie Howe. But what's your opinion on Eddie Howe? I'm certainly excited by him. I think he's completely revamped the club to why we ended up staying in the league after giving every other team in the league a 14-game start. But what are your opinions on Eddie Howe, and does he inspire you as a manager of our club?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Eddie Howe was just what the club needed right now. To be honest, that building the club, we needed stability. After what went before, Richie's right with what he was saying. The 14 years of underinvestment by Mike Ashley, it was a miracle those couple of seasons before that we actually managed to stay and club together and stay in the Premier League. Can you remember what it was like in some back end of February's and sort of like January's where we'd go on some kind of run? But what we're like before that with some of the players that we had, I mean, we talk about a good 12, 11 players there for the first team. We're struggling to scrape a couple of players. We're thinking, right, we've got Dubravka at the back. We've got Maxi there in the midfield, and then it was Wilson, and that was it. You were struggling to get a couple of, even a spine of a good first team there, really, and before the takeover, and obviously before Eddie Howe came in. I think Howe's done an amazing job, really. This is the first major test for him, really. We've been unlucky with injuries. We've been unlucky with a couple of VAR decisions, etc., that haven't gone our way in games. Yes, would have liked a couple more points on the board, and would have liked one or two more faces through the window. But come in January, if somebody had said we would have had Botman through the door, we would have had Matty Targett signed up full time, because if you remember last year, we only had Wilson through the door, and we only had Willock through the door. Joe Willock, thank you, Richie, and he was gone, and we had to struggle to get him back in, to be honest. So this time we managed to get Matty Targett as well, and we've, as I say, we've got Nick Pope. We've got a bit more strength and depth there. It's going in the right direction. There's going to be times where people that will go forward just don't get. There'll be a couple of times where we're left waiting a bit, but give it a couple more windows. Think of where City were and other teams were after their takeovers. It didn't happen overnight. It took about, I think, really 3 years or so for City to really make strides and go up that table and be competitive and start challenging for things.
So your expectations for this season, what was that? Just keep pushing on up the table, give you 2 or 3 years to get to maybe that top 4, or are you expecting European football soon? I'm just looking at the clock 10 months ago for that first transfer window, all those big signings. What were your expectations going into this season? Mid-table,
I wanted to be
realistically.
I wanted to be mid-table. I want to be firmly established in the mid-table, not have that relegation struggle that we've had over the years. And if we're pushing towards 9th, 8th, I'd be over the moon with that.
Yeah.
I think we touched on it as well, Pete, didn't we? Where we were thinking, top half of the, lower top 10, possibly up, between 10th and 7th. That's a good progression from first and 11th last year. Bear in mind, we gave a lot of the teams a head start last year. It took us to December to get our first win. So, if you look at 11th, for us, a natural progression really is a top 10 finish. We've probably said, top 6. Yeah, we'd love to be there, but but we're not. We want to walk before we can run, sort of thing. That would be probably be an overachievement for us. There's nothing to say we couldn't sneak, a European conference place, but I think anywhere between 7th and 10th, I think all Newcastle fans would snap your hands off for it.
Okay.
Yeah. I've said right from the beginning, anywhere between 10 and 8th is progression for us. It is, and being in the top half of the table is progression. Then we can move forward. It might not be what other people outside of Newcastle expect us to do because of the talk in the media and all the rest of it. It might not even be what some of the players want. People like Bruno Guimaraes have come to the club not to finish 10th in the table, but they also understand that it is a process, and they would expect that if we finish 10th or 9th, for example, that next season we kick on again and we'd be even more competitive, and we would then be looking for Europe. Europe would be a firm target. But it has to be a process. We've got to do things differently to Chelsea and Man City. We have to. And the reason being is because their spending power and what they were allowed to spend back in those days is very different now. Everything's being watched and being sort of looked over with a fine-tooth comb. And we have to be mindful of that. We had to wait another 18 months to get the takeover that we all wanted for that reason. So it's never, ever going to be easy. And we're only just getting a year into it. That's for sure. But just before, obviously, I want to get predictions and likelihoods of the show. But I just obviously, I spoke to you earlier, Media, and we talked about potential lineups for this game. So I just wanted to, I'll share the screen with you just so you can see. I've pulled up the tactics board and set out the team. I hope you can see that. Okay, but I've set out the team how I think Fulham are going to set out with the formation and the players I think that you gave to me. Does that look about right?
So Leno in goal, yes. Tete.
Not 1 second. Leno. Sorry.
I would say Tim Ream will probably go into central defence instead of Diop. I'll probably see probably Anthony Robinson starting. I know you've got the Kazawa as well from PSG. He's in a squad. He's been on the bench the last couple of games. I'm not sure if he's 100% ready to start. Robinson's come back from injury after picking up a knock against Tottenham, so he's been training this week. So I'd like to see him go back because he's actually had a good start to the season before that injury. With Paulinho suspended, I think Harrison Reed will slot into that natural position. It's I'm not Harrison Reed's biggest fan. Most Fulham fans will know that, but he does a job. He's playing a more advanced role, running around like a headless chicken at times and being productive in that role. But he'll go back to his customary sort of defensive midfield role. I'll probably see Tom Kearney coming in and sort of starting the game, to be honest. And then I would say Bobby Reed, Willian, Pereira, and Mitrovic sort of in that attacking threat there. To be honest, I think that's who I think will start. Cabana could start in place of William, but I think that's more likely than my starting 11, to be honest.
Okay, is the setup of the team sound about right? About right?
Yes. There's that position. That Reed, I think, will be the automatic choice to go into that sort of defensive midfield role. Question mark around who will replace him in that more advanced role. So I think Tom Kearney will probably come in, but then that could play to your advantage if you can get at that. If I think someone asked a question, what do Newcastle have to do to beat Fulham? I think it's doing what we've been good at doing, is getting at opposing defenses, play that high line. High intensity. If you do that, then stretch Harrison Reed and potentially Tom Kearney will be playing that role, and we will concede goals. I think that's the nature of this team. We will score and create, but we will concede. So that's a positive from a Newcastle perspective. If you get at our defence and break through that midfield and get past Tom Kearney and Harrison Reed.
Interesting. So where do you think you could potentially hurt Newcastle then? Where are the positions? Obviously, you've mentioned Mitro is that obvious choice of that person that could be fox in the box that could cause a little bit of havoc. But where else on the pitch do you think, from attacking points of view, that Fulham could really cause some problems?
I think obviously use Mitrovic. I think sort of just gaining some free kicks and corners. I think getting from set pieces. That's where I think we've got to look to get a lot of our reward from. Our passing game is very good. It's very tidy, organised. Pereira's been good from set pieces. I think Pope's 2 games for England doesn't inspire confidence if I was a Newcastle fan from what I've seen, and I think his screw up against Germany. And again, it's just his distribution looked quite poor overall. He looked quite slow. So I don't know how you guys have rate Pope so far, but just by looking at those 2 England performances, clearly he's not good enough to be England's #1 keeper for the World Cup. So I'd like to test him from distance. His handling has been a little bit poor at times from what I've seen against England. So I think we want to expose that. He's going to be a little bit.
I think England's in isolation. If I'm honest, he didn't play well in either game. Certainly the last game he didn't play too well in. But actually, the statistics say that he's the best performing goalkeeper in the league, in the Premier League this season. So he has played really well for Newcastle, and he's been a big reason why we've not conceded many goals. And I think he's got 2 or 3 clean sheets already this season. So I don't necessarily marry up the England performance with the Newcastle performance. I think the key to that is that when you've got an underperforming Harry Maguire and an underperforming John Stones in front of you, compared to a very confident Fabian Schär. You talked about Dan Burman. He's played. He's looked very good and solid. Sven Botman has also looked very, very good as well. He's got those assured quality centre backs that are very comfortable on the ball, and he understands the way in which you play. We play a lot higher line. What you'll see is in transitions with the ball, you'll see Botman and Schär very, very close to the halfway line, and we will push our team up the other way. So when the ball's in this area, these boys will be pushing right up to the halfway line. They play that high line and force the opposition back. But what's really good with Pope is that he's a sweeper keeper. So he gets that very quick. He sees the danger early. One thing that Dubravka didn't do, and he sweeps the ball up very well. What he found was Maguire and Stones were literally sitting on him. So he didn't have any options to play. And I think that was a big reason why he didn't play well for England. But that's just my opinion on that. But yeah, hopefully we see the Newcastle United Pope on Saturday rather than the England version, that's for sure.
Okay, interesting. I think the midfield battle, I think, will determine who's going to win this game or who's going to get the points. I don't think necessarily that there'll be many goals, weirdly. I think your defence is tight. Like you said, you're not conceding many. We're good on possession. Our possession stats this season are very good. So I think it's going to be a tight affair in my opinion. I think it's got whoever can, who's got better quality in that middle of the park will be the difference. I don't think there'll be many goals in it, and maybe I'm going to be proved wrong. But I predicted a 1-1 draw. I think that's a fair result. But I think it could go either way. At the end of the day, you've not won in 5 games. That run has to change. Hopefully not on Saturday. You can do it the week after, but hopefully not this Saturday. But it's this one's going to be quite close in my opinion. I don't think it's going. Dare I say, it's not going to be a 4-0 or 2-0 drubbing like the last couple of Premier League games you've had at the club. I think it's going to be a lot tighter, and we'll compete a lot more than we did in those 2 games.
Yeah, definitely. It's been interesting to hear that. So, from your perspective, Richie, Keith, just looking, I've just moved certain players around with regards to the formations. How do you think? You look, I've gone for this. This is my predicted lineup personally. Do you agree with that? Do you think anyone else is likely to be in with a start from Newcastle's point of view? And how do you see the game tactically sort of playing out?
I think for me, the question mark on every game now, it seems to be, is who's going to partner Fabian Schär. It tends to be either Sven Botman or Dan Burn. There's a lot of people in the chat who are turning around and saying that they believe that Lascelles might stand in because obviously he's the hustle and bustle with Mitrovic, but also the fact that they believe that Botman's also never lost an aerial duel this year. So, it's going to be a lot of aerial balls put in the box for Mitrovic as one of his strengths. I think the other possible question mark might be on Sam Maxwell's fitness, whether he's going to be able to make it. So the Fraser's had a good international trip with Scotland. So if he does get the start, you'd like to see him continue with that form. But it's possible that Sam Maxwell will be there, and I think that just shows a little bit more strength to come off the bench as well if needs be, if that is the case, because we've always said that Fraser's a fantastic understudy for. As a backup to either Sam Maxwell or Almona, so and then obviously you've got Longstaff who can come on and possibly help out, depending on how the midfield battle's going. But I think obviously with Isak now being injured, obviously Chris Wood's out as well. I don't think he'd have started anyway. But obviously Wilson looks as though he's going to have to play in out front. You just don't want anything, as Emilio mentioned about Mitrovic, you don't want anything to happen now to Wilson, because obviously the two other lads who we've got as our number 9 out and play to the middle are carrying knocks or injured. So so that's the thing. You don't want him to get injured. We know he's a bit like glass sometimes. Let's just hope he's he's toughened glass now and can last a hell of a lot longer, because we need him to at the minute.
We do. We definitely need him. And look, ASM was one of them. Look, it would be without question, if there was a choice and was 100% fit, he'd be starting ahead of Fraser. But I've got a feeling that we're going to play Fraser, that industrial player that can get forward, get back and do a job, certainly away from home. And then as the game opens up, hopefully as the game opens up later on, is you bring a fresh Alan St-Maximin on for 15, 20 minutes and just ask him to cause havoc down this left-hand side. And that's why I kind of put him on the bench for that reason. Because I think, bringing him on later, what it does, it eases him back into football. He's not playing 60, 70 minutes and potentially breaking down. He's having a 15-minute spell. They may open that up to half an hour in the next game, or depending on how he gets on, they might then give him the 60 minutes against Brentford. But Keith, from your perspective, Richie's made some points about some of the potential changes, certainly with the Botman, Shaw and Byrne kind of triangle of who's going to start. Is there any other alternatives that you put in there? I've got Sean Longstaff there as another option. Could you see him coming in here?
Just about to ask about Bruno's fitness, because we know Bruno as well. So I was just wondering if maybe Longstaff could figure more. And also as well, Elliot Anderson at some stage of the match as well. Is it worth, where we've got issues in attack, is it worth bringing on Elliot Anderson at some stage of the game as well? It would be optimistic to think Wilson could, if he's starting, could last long into the match. What other options would we have up front?
I think the only other option you'd possibly have, and it's something we've done before, is if Wilson's struggling after, say, 60 minutes, you might actually have to see Alan St-Maximin play through the middle, which he has done before, because realistically, you could technically play Joe Linton up top, which is where he was bought, but we've seen where he struggled before. It would be interesting to see how he would play under Howe with the extra confidence behind him. But you could, as I said, there's a good chance that ASM could play through the middle, and then obviously that frees up one of the substitutes for Anderson to play on either of the flanks.
But he scored the wonder goal against Wolves away, playing as a striker, because that's what we did. We took Wood off and played pretty much for 20 odd minutes, played ASM here. And what was great about that is there was an interchange. So ASM was here, but Miggy would make the runs in and around this area. Fraser was doing the same. And it was very difficult for the Wolves players to pick us up. What we did also have is Elliot Anderson, where Willett is currently making these runs in and behind. And we were causing some real problems that way. So I wouldn't put it past that being a potential option. I do think they will give Wilson 60 minutes and see how he's getting on. I think it all depends on the game. If we're comfortable in the game and we're winning by a couple of goals, they might want to rest him. And kind of say 60 minutes is enough and make sure he's ready for Brentford. But I think as the game goes on, if we're not winning and we're chasing the result, then I think they might take the risk and keep Wilson on. That's for sure. But just very quickly, just before we wrap it up, where do you think we can hurt Fulham. You know, Emilio's talked quite openly about some of the players and where he thinks that we can kind of or you know where we can be hurt by Fulham. He's talked about set pieces being one of them. Do you think set pieces is an area that we can exploit them? We get a lot of them. We have had a lot of set pieces this season, corners, free kicks, and we haven't necessarily utilised them. In game though, where can we hurt Fulham? Do you think?
I think, as Emilio mentioned earlier, and I think that it's a battle of the midfield for who wins this. I slightly believe that I think we've got the better quality in midfield. If Shelby was to be possibly fit, obviously I don't know how far away he is. Everyone reckons he's progressing really well. But if you were to have him on that deeper role and Bruno and Joelinton further forward, that one there pretty much would pick itself, and I would see that being completely dominating over Reed, and especially I know Emilio isn't a big fan of Harrison Reed. I remember Tom Kenny obviously passed there, duels between Newcastle and Fulham, and I don't know whether his legs have got a bit more now, and he's not getting as much game time as he used to.
He played more as a number 10 as well, whenever I remember.
Yeah, exactly. When he's this season, he's brought a calming influence to held the ball well. We're lacking a bit of options there, to be honest. We've got Daniel James from Leeds United again. I see him coming off the bench with half an hour to go and trying to make something happen. Cabano can play in that wide role, but that central midfield role, that's where we're slightly got some gaps. With Palhinha injured, Shalabar's there as a backup player, but he's not really shining, to be honest. Don't be surprised he may even start, but I think Reed and Kenny, a bit of experience there is required, to be honest, and it's going to be quite a tight tussle then. I'm interested to look at Robinson and Trippier. Both like to come forward, both attacking fullbacks. Be interesting to see that battle, who wins that between those two players if Robinson starts.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, and look, Keith, I'll bring you in on this. Where I think Newcastle, if we're gonna win the game on Saturday, from my perspective, I think we're gonna win it on the counter. I think that's how we're gonna hit, because we've got the pace of Wilson, Almiron. Fraser's not a slow player, but you've got the likes of Joelinton and Bruno if he plays in that role. And I'll talk about why Willock's there in a second. But you've got Willock as well. We've got pacey players that like to get forward. Target's not slow. Trippier can get in and behind. He's got that quality of ball. Even if he's not got the pace, he can pinpoint a pass. And I just think that's maybe where we can really exploit the opposition that way. That's just my opinion on that. But the reason why I got Bruno here, I've just switched it around, is because I don't know if any of you saw the Instagram story of Bruno when he was playing FIFA, and he was beating Sunderland 3-0. And what I was interested in, not the fact that he was showing us his goal that he scored, but actually I wanted to see what his formation was in his starting lineup. So I managed to stop it, and I looked, and I was interested to see that he'd picked Willock playing in that defensive role. Maybe he did that so he could play himself further forward and he could get the goals. I don't know. But I just thought that was quite interesting that he played Willock there, and I didn't know whether he was telling us something we didn't know. I think the rest of the team was as it was. Obviously ASM for Fraser. But I didn't know if any of you had picked up on that one, and what your thoughts maybe would be of Willock.
I hadn't seen it, to be honest. I'd be more interested to see how he's incorporated Wilson and Isak. That's what I'd be more interested in.
Yeah. Interesting. Actually, I think he. Oh, let me go back to. I think he started Wilson up front. If I'm right, I could be wrong. I think he might have started Wilson up top. I'd have to go back to it, but it was really interesting to see actually the fact that he picked that team and Willock playing there. Botman he had starting. I'm pretty sure he picked Willock. Pretty sure, but anyway, that's something that maybe could be an option, and that they try something new, or Willock comes out and is that impact player later on. We know what he can do as an impact player. We saw it when he was on loan at us, and maybe do this. Would you be against this, boys?
No, I think the way that Longstaff had a good relationship with Joelinton and Bruno towards the end of last season, we've discussed that before. They seem to have a good understanding, and Longstaff seemed to be that person who was breaking up the play when teams were on the break and stuff like that. So I think you'd probably he's never going to get that number 10 role, which he's always wanted, which he always looked like when he was on his loan spells and stuff like that. I think he could probably do a better job as a hold and role in that midfield, and leave the attack and build up play to Joe Linton and Bruno, in my opinion.
Yeah, I've just checked on Instagram. It was Wilson up top. Isaac was not in the team. So yeah,
not afraid to drop the record side in there.
I know. Tell me about it. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting. But look, we love to do, Emilio, you wouldn't have seen it before, but we love to do this tactical sort of battle. We like to see how the teams might shape up and see, what we've talked about, both yourself and from a Newcastle perspective, whether it actually plays out on match day. So let's
Emilio,
see.
I was going to ask a quick question. What have you made of Bernd Leno since he's moved from Arsenal? Because obviously he was a goalkeeper that Newcastle had touted a little bit as well at the start of the window. We knew, from what I've seen of him, he was renowned for having a little bit of an error in him. Has he got that out of his game yet, or has he looked a little bit shaky at times, or?
Not really, to be honest. He's, clearly we needed a new keeper. I think we were linked with Pope before you guys came and snapped him up very early in the transfer window. And I thought, Leno, it dragged on the transfer. It was like we were negotiating very hard with Arsenal. We managed to get him a very good cut deal price. And to be honest, we needed some of that quality, that sort of that physique. Rodak's a good goalkeeper. He's not, but I don't think he's good enough for the Premier League to be playing week in, week out. And Leno's just added a bit more assurance, better handling. I think he distributes the ball better. There's been a couple of moments he's maybe flat or looked a little bit uncomfortable, but overall he's looked quite commanding there in that position. He's held the ball well. His distribution is just a lot better than Rodak. Just seems more an accomplished Premier League player. So yeah, I'm very happy with this signing. I think we needed someone of his ilk to come in and add a bit of structure and just assurance, experience. And I think Wilson, with our Ream, Adebayo, and all that, they feel comfortable having Leno behind them. So overall, I think he's a good signing for us. We got him at a bargain price. There's a few add-on fees if we stay up this season, but overall, I think most Fulham fans are happy with this signing.
Do you think it's and obviously I don't want this to be like a detrimental comment, but do you think he's not having that as much pressure that he would have possibly had when he was at Arsenal in the Emirates?
I think so. Yeah, I think there was obviously higher expectations at Arsenal. I think here his expectations are more grounded, shall we say? But he's handled well. He's made some good saves. He's kept us the score down in a couple games against Tottenham. He was good. The fact that the 2-1 defeat flattered us, to be honest, but he looked good in that game. And overall, he's going to be an important player. He'll save us points this season. I think that's important. I think you look at your goalkeeper. You're saying with Pope, he's being very strong in that position. Keeping it very tight, kept you in games. I think that the goalkeepers aren't always renowned for the saves they make. It's usually it's either strikers that take all the glory. So I think both our keepers will probably save us a few points this season from what you've said, and certainly from what I've seen of Leno so far. I'm very happy with him, and I think he just gives that calming influence which we need.
Interesting. Thank you, Yano. Always with the positive comments about one or two players. I don't think he's really slow. I think probably Trippier is slower than him. But yeah,
he was good for us a few seasons when we got promoted. We were trying to buy him from Southampton, but Southampton wanted, I think, 15 million. I think back about 4 years ago. So then went to Villa. But if we had him in that season 4 years ago when we got promoted, I think we probably would have had more chance to stay up. And I think we missed him, but he's moved on a couple of times, and he's still quite young, isn't he? He's mid 20s, 26, 27, I think.
26, yeah.
So I think he's a good player. I was hoping that we would have snapped him up in the transfer window, but clearly, again, he's one of your earlier signings.
Yeah, I think he's done okay. He had a really good loan last season. I think he started okay. I wasn't impressed with him against Tranmere, although he'd just come back from an injury. I thought he was quite poor and lazy at times. So there's been a slight dip in form, but I've kind of put that down to fitness because I think he had a slight pull of his hamstring or a bad dead leg, and he missed the game or so to get back into the team. So I'll put it down to that. But I do think long term we will need to invest in another left back. I I think that would just be natural. I think he'll become maybe the successor or not the successor, the understudy to a better left back as part of our transition. But we'll see on that. But for now, I think he'll do a job for Newcastle. That's for sure. Right, just before we get to the end of the show, are there any pressing questions that you want to ask Emilio that we can fire through?
Yeah, Tom's asked a good question, and he says, Emilio, where do you think Fulham will finish in the league this season?
So yeah, my minimum is 17th. That's my target. But I predicted 14th to 16th. I think realistic. I think in that sort of range. I'll take survival. That's a minimum we want to do, and if we can get more points on the board and not have to struggle the last third of the season after the World Cup. I think realistic is running around 13th to 16th, 14th, 16th in that area. I think we will stay up. I think there are worse teams in this division, and then we can hopefully push on year. But it's the minimum we want is survival, so 17th minimum.
Okay, fantastic question from Lisa, who's a regular. Will you be coming to Newcastle for the reverse fixture? Also, have you been before? Just like to hear what away fans take on the city, St James's and stuff like that.
Yeah, been a couple of times in the past. This going back in the 80s. I went there in the 80s many years, and I went at one of our Premier League earlier games when we were there about 10, 15 years ago. So yeah, great atmosphere. I do want to go to the corresponding games. It's been a while since I last went up there. Make a weekend of it, as long as they don't move it to a Sunday afternoon or a Friday night, to be honest. So keep it Saturday 3 p.m, please, and then I'll definitely want to come up there because it's a great day out, great weekend, and you've got great passionate fans. You always make us feel welcome. That's important. In the same way we make you feel welcome when you come in. There's no rivalry between the two clubs. It's there's a lot of passion between both supporters, and I think we'll have a good fun day out the weekend. Hopefully we'll be better off with 3 points. But let's see. Set at 5 o'clock on Saturday.
Yeah, I think our fans definitely like the away days down at Fulham and have the boat trip down the Thames just before they get the Craven Cottage
Geordie O'Mara.
Yeah, that's
always,
the one.
Always have fun down there. And that's what we enjoy. Don't just when there's no agenda. May the best team win. To be honest, and that's why it's nice to have you guys coming down. So you're very welcome to come year in, year out.
And there's one final question, which I thought it's a nice light-hearted one to finish on. It's from Jolly Tune for Life, and what he said is, question for Emilio. If you could pick 3 London clubs to get relegated from the Premier League, who would you choose? Thanks in advance and good luck for the season after Saturday. 3
London clubs? Eesh.
Yeah.
We've got to put Brentford up there. Get Brentford to get relegated. That'll be nice. It's Crystal Palace. And who else? Oh, God. It's who else is there? It'd be nice to see it's not like a Tottenham or an Arsenal going down, but it's unfortunately our record in London derbies in the last few years has been horrendous. We finally broke that duck against Brentford. I think we went through nearly 20 London derbies without a win in Premier League games over a few seasons. So we broke that duck now. But yeah, tough question. If QPR were there, they're our biggest rivals. QPR and Brentford. It's simply Crystal Palace. I think they're a bit too arrogant for their own good as well. I think they're underachieving this season as well. I know it's only 7 games, but they'll be disappointed with their points return so far.
What are your thoughts on Chelsea, Emilio? Current Chelsea team.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? How much money they throw in there, to be honest. It's just getting not sustainable. How do the clubs like ourselves survive? How can we make a fist of it when you've got clubs like that just throwing bad money? It's not, something has to change there. Otherwise, it can't be just about survival and pushing on top 8, top 9. That's why what Brighton did last year was incredible. And the fact that they're still pushing up the upper reaches. Where does it leave Fulham and Newcastle? Fighting for 10th and 12th and Premier League survival, we've got no chance when you're spending £100 million on a player. It's just ridiculous. But I've got nothing against Chelsea. Chelsea are a local club. I was born between the both stadiums, so they were always probably a more dangerous club to go and watch because there was a lot of hooliganism in my time when I was younger. So that's why I went to Fulham. I went to Fulham, safer club, family home, and no regrets. But I wish Chelsea well because they're a local club and good for London. So I don't mind if they win trophies. I've got nothing against them.
Interesting.
No rivalry between me and Chelsea. Never has been. It's more the QPRs, the Brentfords that we've got a bit of a rivalry against.
No, good to know.
Yeah.
This is why we ask these questions. So, yeah, brilliant one there from Jordan 2 for Life. That's for sure. And look, we'll wrap up the show as always before we get to the sponsors by just getting a nice little prediction of what we think it will be like at 5 p.m. Saturday. So, Richie, I'll start with you. Do you think we're going to be jumping for joy at 3 points in the bag, or is it going to be another score draw, or are we going to get a second defeat of the season? What are you thinking?
I do think both teams may score, but I think Newcastle might edge it by the odd goal. So I've predicted 2-1.
Interesting. Emilio, what are your thoughts? I know you've kind of already alluded to your potential result, but what do you think?
I think, as much as, I think we're good. I think we can beat you on the day on 90 minutes. I think I don't think there's much between the two teams. I think there's a bit more confidence in our team. Maybe overall you've probably got slightly more quality with that starting 11. But overall, if we get a point, I'll be happy. But I think there's no reason why we can't go in and win by the 2-1. I think you're right, Richie. I think both teams will concede. I think the question is who's got enough courage, enough strength, determination, and there might be a bit of good fortune somewhere. Maybe that will result in someone winning the game. But I would have taken a 1-1 draw before the beginning of the season in this fixture. Nothing's changed my mind, but I think it's going to be a tight 1-1 draw.
Interesting. Keith, what are your thoughts on the scoreline come Saturday?
This game really worries us, to be honest. And Newcastle's form before the international break worried us a bit as well. I can see what Com just put in the chat there. I can see a 2-2. I could see a Desmond. I could see a draw. But as well, just because Newcastle is attacking as well, and the chances that they've had and number of goals from open play, I can see Fulham edging it, if I'm honest. Mitrovic is due a goal against Newcastle. He hasn't scored, I think, in about 4 games.
Don't say it.
You're right.
Jordy 2 for Life has just said it. Say it quietly, Jordy 2 for Life. Don't put it out there.
Keith, you want to be invited back next week?
I'm trying to wear positive colours because I'm hoping that'll the formal change of Newcastle in front of goal, and I'm hoping that I want to see a 2-1. I want to see a certainly, but I think the best Newcastle can hope for in this game would be a draw. But I can see Fulham edging it as well.
I've come to expect it from you, Keith. The old sit on the fence with your prediction. I didn't expect anything different from you, to be honest. Look, I'm going to go. I do think it would be a tight game. I'm going to go 1-0 Newcastle. I think it'll be a tight game. We don't concede many goals. I think, you know what? I think it's going to be one of those games where we have everything other than loads of goals. So I think there's going to be a lot of action in the game, a lot of chances. But I think maybe 1 goal will potentially win it. Jordy 2 for Life is.
I'm a heel, aren't I? I should be at WrestleMania. I'm a heel, Pete, aren't I?
Triple H, you are Triple H all day long. The ultimate heel. But yeah, I think a 1-0 win to Newcastle could be on the cards. So I'm going to stay and remain positive because some of the boys are back. Wilson, Bruno, potentially ASM, Anderson. We're getting our players back, and I think with the international break could have probably come at a good time for us. So 1-0 from my perspective. That's for sure. And just before we wrap up, of course, we have to say a massive thank you to all of our sponsors, starting with Simon, who's been in the chat tonight. So thank you, Simon, as always. www.sharburns.com. If you haven't looked at the website, fantastic support. He's been supporting all things mental health. We talked about it previously. And he's being involved in Be a Game Changer, and he's a champion for that alongside the NU Foundation. So fantastic supporter of all things mental health. And if you haven't checked out his gear, please do. He's got some fantastic gear, and he has tweeted that again, some support in linking up with some of the gear. And of course, if you haven't seen the away days gear, I've got the Brazilian version, paying homage to Bruno and Joe Linton as well. But also thank you to Pins and Prints We always promote the pins and prints, and I want to see what their new pins and prints are, what's available. We've talked about the Trippiers and the Fabian Shahs. I wonder if they've got the ASM wonder goal against Wolves up and running yet. So I'll have to have a look at that.
I've had a look online. There's nothing been updated as yet, but I know Dean's been having a break. But I did email him the other day, so I'm just waiting to hear back from him.
Okay, excellent. So we'll keep an eye out for that one. Marty's Machine House. Thank you very, very much. Some new gear available, as you can see on the screen. Love that top. Fantastic. Definitely one for the list of purchase, that's for sure. Some fantastic hoodies and gears, all local brands and all local sponsors for the channel, which we really, really appreciate. And finally, a massive thanks to Dean at the Geordie Rise. Fantastic gear available. Lots more on our other thread, but of course we've got Uggy promoting the Geordie Rise t-shirt here. There's lots of other gear. Again, I've got some on purchase with Dean for some of the other gear, and on the other shows I'll get these pictures switched over so you can see the quality of merchandise that's available. But massive thank you to all the sponsors, of course, for your support. It means a lot to us, and it allows us to obviously promote your brands, but also to give the channel that push that it needs. If you haven't already, please click the subscribe. So any new viewers of the channel, click that subscribe button. We are on the way to 5,000 subscribers, and those that one click of a button does make a difference as well. If you want to consider being a member, click that blue button that you can see on the screen. For $1.99 a month, you can become a member of the Loaded family and be involved in the prize draws, some of which will be coming up within the next week. So keep an eye out for that as well. And look, it was talked about earlier on in the show. Hit the like on the way out. Thank you, Colm Bugler, and thank you for your support. Click that thumbs up on the way out. We've had 80 plus watching the show live with us, and we'll have many more watching it over the next couple of days. So click that thumbs up. Means that more people can see the show. Fantastic show, and the fantastic opinions of the likes of Emilio, who's taking the time to join us. But look, I'll end it there. Emilio, massive thank you to you for taking the time to talk Newcastle. Fascinating opinions from you. Really, really great to hear. And look, in the turnaround fixture, it'd be great to have you on again.
Absolutely, be happy to join. Thanks for having me on. It's a great show, great sponsors. Keith, Richie, Pete, yourself, fantastic, hosts and pundits and all that. I wish you all the best for the rest of the season. Saturday obviously excluded, but look, there's no rivalry between both our clubs. So yeah, it's going to be hopefully a good season for both of us. I really enjoyed the show, and all your listeners, subscribe, hit the like button, like you said. And a massive thanks to all your sponsors as well. They're all doing a big difference for our society. So yeah, kudos to those guys as well.
Definitely. And just before you go, where can anyone find you, and where can we find you talking all things Fulham?
Yep. So me personally, Teddy Nello, and then Cottage Talk is our Fulham fans podcast as well. So we'll get you on our show as well this season. It'll be good to have you guys on there as well. So look forward to having you on. But yep, do follow me. Just press the like button. Go onto YouTube. You'll find us Cottage Talk there as well. So yeah, we're growing as a brand as well. We've got many followers. Twitter's been our biggest platform, but we're sort of now evolving into YouTube as well. So we're slowly creeping up. So we've got a long way to go to hit your targets. But yeah, if everyone watching here can follow Cottage Talk, that'd be much appreciated.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Richie, Keith, always a pleasure. Never, ever a chore. Thank you for joining us tonight in sharing your opinions. And look, we pray from a Newcastle perspective for 3 points come 5 o'clock. But thank you for everyone in the chat. Really, really appreciate all your comments and questions. Sorry if we didn't get all your questions in, but we will next time, that's for sure. And look, over and out. As always, we do love playing away. You guys take care. Speak to you soon.
Take care. Thanks, everyone.
Good night. Thanks, Emilio.